All right. And we're live on the HeyGen Community Hub. I think we'll probably just want to dive in today, and people will probably enter in, but in the interest of time, I think we're just going to get right started. But welcome, everybody. My name is Liz Matuzak. I'm on the customer success team here at HeyGen. And today we're hosting a very special webinar with one of our very important customers with a great use case to discuss today, Westbourne Grammar School. And they are using, as a spoiler, one of our solutions that's becoming more and more popular, and probably also one of our solutions with the broadest range of applications. It's our interactive avatar solution. And just for a little background for everybody joining the call today that may not already be aware, our interactive avatar is an AI chatbot that can be trained on virtually any knowledge base, and respond intelligently to questions that are asked to it. You can speak to it using your microphone, you can direct questions to it, you can type questions to it just like a normal chatbot. And you can really train it on virtually anything under the sun. So some customers are using this internally to educate their internal employees, and some are using it externally, which is what we're going to get into today. But yeah, so to kick us off, again, I'm here with Adrian Cam. He is the managing director for Westbourne Grammar School. They are based in Australia. I would love for you to just give a brief introduction, Dr. Adrian Cam. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role. And I guess, yeah, we'll start with that. Let's do a brief introduction first.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the chat. So I'm the principal and managing director of Westbourne Grammar School, which is an independent school in Melbourne, in Australia. We have 2,400 students, and we employ over 500 staff. So we're 159 years old, and so we've got a lot of history and tradition, but we're actually really progressive and innovative in many ways as well. And our vision, if you like, is shaping learners who inspire the world. And a distinct part of our educational philosophy is to position our young people as the creators of tomorrow's technology today. So we believe that students shouldn't just come to our school and study art, they should become artists. We don't think they should just study maths, they should become mathematicians. And so our teaching approaches and our curriculum approaches really inform that vision and that philosophy. And we're really committed to innovation and imagining what school could be. And so, for instance, we offer curriculum options for our students to study future studies, because schools traditionally offer history, which is fantastic and really important, but they often neglect to look to the future. And so we really push the boundaries on what's possible in schools, because we believe that schools have a crucial role shaping the capacities and capabilities of young people. And I think there's always been a debate about the kinds of skills people need to thrive in the future. And so from where we come from, an in-depth skill set or specialization, expertise, if you like, in a particular area is still absolutely important. But as we're noticing, increasingly, major discoveries are happening at the intersections of disciplines. And so this requires young people to have depth in a specific field, but also have breadth and an ability and a capability to see and make connections more broadly. And of course, technology is perhaps more important than ever now, and AI is definitely part of our future.
Yeah, that really reminds me, just 10 years ago, I think it was a really popular piece of advice to give to young people to study coding. And I think that's still probably really important. But with the advent of AI, specific skills in AI and prompt engineering have become really important. And I think on a practical level, I mean, it's just changing every day. So you kind of led with this, but in general, how do you see AI shaping the future of education, particularly, the age range that you're working with?
Yeah, it's transforming every industry, across the world, and education is no different. I've always been personally fascinated reading science fiction, for instance, as a young person. And I think what we're seeing now is this idea of science fiction fast becoming science fact. The convergence of technologies enabling us to do things that once were only possible in our imaginations are fast accelerating. And, AI and the work of HeyGen is a classic example of that. We're seeing AI transform every industry and disrupt everything. 20 years ago, it was about, beating the world's best chess players. Now it's, poker and Go. I think it was 10 years ago, researchers were saying that it'd be 100 years before the most sophisticated AI would be able to beat the world's best Go player. And it happened, I think, in 2017, which was only 2 years later. And so we're on this trajectory now towards AGI or artificial general intelligence. And, it's going to, the simplest AGI is going to be more intelligent, more powerful than, the combined intellect of the human species. So, to think that it's not going to transform education, I think is a really narrow minded view. And I think it's going to transform it in so many different ways. I completed my PhD last year, and I'm really thankful for that because I really question the value of an academic qualification at the highest level moving forward. And I think universities are really going to struggle with that value proposition. But I think what it will mean is it will increasingly be about what you can do rather than what you can do with what you know rather than what you know on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if that's going to frame the transformation. And so in our context at school, we're working with 3-year-olds all the way through to 18-year-olds. And so we're seeing, I think, the capability now for 24/7 hyper personalization. We're going to see tailored and customized education that's going to be right at a student's zone of proximal development, which will enable them to be pushing constantly outside of their comfort zone. But I think it's also going to create an environment where students can access deeper level thinking and engage in greater complexity. It's going to augment rather than diminish their cognitive capacities if they have the right modeling and frameworks in place to be able to make sure that they're not just taking the easy path and getting AI to do all the heavy lifting for them, but they're using AI to really enhance their understanding and to engage in issues and problems that they could never have done before. Things like, if you look at the world, some of the biggest intractable problems, political, environmental, economic, social, students are really going to be able to engage in the big issues of our times. And I think it's going to unlock new possibilities. And it's actually a really exciting time. And I think at Westbourne Grammar School, we're heavily invested in this. We're not just providing opportunities for our young people, we're providing opportunities for our staff, but we're also educating our community about the opportunities and also the challenges of AI, both now and into the future.
Yeah, a lot of what you just said really resonates with me. I was thinking about this yesterday. I use AI, I use ChatGPT probably just about every day. And I was thinking about how, unlike maybe scrolling social media, for example, where you might come across educational content or like a how-to video, it's passive. Whereas if you're using ChatGPT to maybe figure out how to do something, like in my case, it was figuring out how to rehydrate brown sugar yesterday. It actually, you have to apply the knowledge right away. So I actually do feel like I'm learning. And you mentioned kind of the importance of educating students or giving them a framework so that they're not just getting the answers from ChatGPT or for lack of a better word, like kind of cheating or taking the easy way. Do you kind of explicitly call out to students why it's worth it to go to a variety of sources, or how do you mitigate for that and get your students to not take the easy route, so to speak?
Yeah, there's a number of approaches that we use. I think anyone that's really engaged in, let's say we're just focusing on ChatGPT for a minute, picking up on your example. If you can, the discerning person can actually see, I think, something that's written by ChatGPT at the moment. Potentially as the technology advances in coming years, we may not be able to distinguish AI writing from human writing, but at the moment, there's really sort of some signposts that you can determine that, this is probably written by AI. So with students in the classroom, for instance, we actually engage them in that conversation. We teach them critical thinking, and for them to have a criticality in terms of their approach to their own learning. And so it would be completely remiss of us, with students entering a world of work that's going to be AI driven, for us not to be talking to them about this thing. So using AI to perhaps grade or self-assess a piece of their writing, or having an AI generated piece of writing as a class discussion point for the students to dissect that piece of writing and to actually look at how it's written, how it's composed, its sentence structure, what biases perhaps have creeped in, what perspective has the AI taken to answer a particular question and produce a piece of writing. So it's really just opening up a dialogue and having a conversation with our young people. Now, that's not to say that some students don't take the easy route, because of course they will. But we need to be talking to them about why that's not in their best interest moving forward, and just having real honest and open conversations with each other.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and it's great to hear that your students are receptive. And I think critical thinking is such an important part of education. I was thinking about higher education specifically. My dad always said that you don't necessarily remember the facts that you learned in school or university, but you do take away with you how to think. And it sounds like that's really a big focus for Westbourne.
Well, that's the fundamental aspect of a modern education, learning how to learn.
Yeah.
There will be domains of knowledge that will change very little over the next 100 years, but there'll be other domains of knowledge that will change substantially. There'll be new domains of knowledge created. And so it's this ability to be constantly engaged in a life of learning that's going to be the number one skill for a young person. And AI is going to be, of course, part of that.
Yeah, and I think this is really important for corporations and the working world too, because we know that employees are going to be using AI more and more. And I think probably as part of a fundamental like onboarding experience for a lot of companies, there's going to be some element of AI education involved. Um, yeah, and so originally, what inspired Westbourne to look at AI-driven solutions? I'm imagining that it was, AI was just becoming more and more relevant, and Westbourne wanted to be on kind of the cutting edge, so you can showcase to your students that you are a foremost educational institution.
Yeah. We were talking about this stuff, prior to I think the media explosion around OpenAI and ChatGPT, quite a few years ago now. But when that started to really take off, I said to the team here, we really need to be at the leading edge of this work, and there's a number of reasons for that. I think we've always been early adopters and using new technologies to both educate and inform, and to showcase how this could potentially positively impact or influence the work that we do as educators and in our school in particular. But there were some real drivers, some key drivers for me. It was definitely making sure that the education we offer our young people is both engaging, contemporary, and relevant. It's okay to study it's vitally important to study the traditional aspects of an education, but we can't neglect the contemporary elements of an education and engaging students in the conversations that are happening right now. So student engagement was a key driver. We have an incredibly diverse community. We have over 70 different nationalities, and a very multilingual student population and family population. So we wanted to look at ways to harness AI to break down language barriers, to increase accessibility, but to also support students with language acquisition, utilizing real-time language translation in classrooms. One of the big drivers as well was also looking at ways to harness AI to create efficiencies for teachers, to free up time for them to focus on the really important work, the work that they're really good at, which is the interface between teacher and student, rather than the administrative burden that does increase in schools. And I'm sure that applies to every organisation and industry across the world. So, they were probably the key drivers, but then connecting it back to our vision, which is shaping learners who inspire the world. Now, if we're shaping learners who are going to inspire the world in the future, we have to be preparing them for that future. And part of that future is definitely going to involve AI. So I guess that's some of the drivers and some of the reasons why we really lent into this work and we're heavily invested in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now to get a little bit more specific, and what we're talking about in the webinar here today is the interactive avatar solution. What led you to when did that first enter your radar, and what really led you to first consider it? And how did you decide and what made you decide to ultimately implement it?
Yeah, well, we're constantly engaged in a process of horizon scanning here. And I think, I'm not quite sure, was HeyGen founded in 2020 or something like that? I don't know.
That is right around the time that I think we first started really becoming like the awareness started growing. So yes, it was right around then that you might have first heard of us.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the year after or something like that, but it wasn't probably until about late 2022, maybe it might have been early 2023. I'm not quite sure, where I really started investigating the different startups and different platforms that were exploding across the web in terms of their AI capabilities and capacities and their offerings. And I signed up with HeyGen, and I was just exploring what the technology could do. And I was actually contacted by the co-founder, Josh, and he said, hey, we'd love to have a chat. And so we connected online, and we had a good chat, and I was talking to him about the products, and he was talking to me about the roadmap and my experiences. And that was a really stimulating conversation. And so it then went from experimentation to how we're going to leverage this technology and how we're going to scale it across the school. And so I work really closely with a strategic projects person here at the school, Delise, who I think was just over in LA at the HeyGen office, which is fantastic. And we developed a bit of a strategic plan in terms of our adoption of different AI technologies. Now, part of that was definitely AI avatars and the AI interactive avatar piece. One, to increase accessibility and visibility, which I'm happy to talk about soon. But the other one was to also really experiment from a business perspective, how we could automate workflows, how we could increase customer service satisfaction levels, and how we could engage our community with personalized video messages to just look at the 1%ers that would really lead to people feeling more included in our community. Do you want me to pop up my AI avatar?
Yeah. So just for a little bit of background, that was a great introduction. So as far as we've discussed so far, and also when you officially decided to move forward with the interactive avatar solution, I remember last year I was actually the one to prepare that order form. So it's just so exciting for me to see everything that you've done with it to date. But just to give a little background, you mentioned that you're using it both for kind of more the customer service use case, which is kind of answering questions, but also for prospective students, which is more of almost like on a sales function. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about like those specific use cases, and maybe you can even pull up your screen here and just show how you've integrated it with the Westbourne website. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. So So it all started with this idea of a visibility strategy. Like how in a large organization, how do you make sure that you're visible to all your stakeholders? And so for us in a school, our stakeholders are our immediate community, which are our students, staff, and families, and then our external stakeholder groups. The education sector, our industry partners, and then potential new families or new enrollments to the school and new staff in terms of recruitment. So we really wanted to amplify our visibility in a range of different ways. So our first foray into the interactive avatar space was to create a knowledge base of all the information related to the school that might be of interest to prospective families. So yeah, like a sales function, if you like. And so we did the recording, we did the voice clone, we built the knowledge bank, and then we did some really extensive testing and then deployed the interactive avatar of myself on our external facing website. And so it serves as an almost like a knowledge concierge, if you like, taking that chatbot experience to the next level by having people interact with the principal or the managing director or the CEO of the school or the business. And so, a lot of the questions that people come to the website to ask are things like, how do I enroll my student? What is the teaching and learning approach of the school? Who is the leadership team? What's the school's reputation like? What's its history? What are the tuition fees? What are the term dates? And all these sorts of questions that they have that they can now ask and get answers to in real time without having to troll through and navigate the website, which has proven to be really, has been received really well. Mm-hmm. So I'll pull that up in a minute, but then we've also deployed a version of the interactive avatar internally, which can act almost as a leadership or management mentor or coach for staff who can interact with the interactive avatar in a slightly different way to what the external facing people might be accessing the avatar for. And we've now just recently deployed 2 new interactive avatars. So one of our director of teaching and learning, who has oversight of the teaching and learning program at our school and our curriculum. And it serves as a way for staff and for students to access her knowledge, her expertise in relation to subject specificities, but also to our overarching approach to our educational philosophy or our curriculum or whatever questions that they might have. And the third one, which is just about to be deployed, is our Director of Digital Learning. And so he is in charge of our digital strategy, which oversees teaching and learning and business operations. And so his avatar exists for people to ask questions, to look at digital pedagogies, to ask questions about strategic decisions, what's on our roadmap, etc. So they're the 3 main use cases at this point.
All right. Yeah, why don't, if you don't mind sharing your screen, I think it's such a polished integration where it's embedded on your website. I would love to just show everybody on the webinar today what that looks like.
Yeah, I would love to. So talking to my AI avatar on a live webinar is a new experience for me, Liz, so just bear with me.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Can you see that come up now?
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. So this is our external facing website, so westbournegrammar.com, and we have the interactive avatar deployed on each page of the website, but it definitely pops up and is accessible from the landing page. So you'll see that it appears almost like as a normal chatbot type feature, but if I click on chat now, I can choose one of, I think, almost 100 different languages, and it will respond in real time in those languages. And having checked with native speakers in a lot of those languages, the translation is almost like 99.9% perfect. So it's amazing. So excellent. When I click start new chat, it'll just go through a short loading phase before it becomes interactive. And then I can decide how I want to interact with the avatar, whether it's via text, or whether it's via speech. So I'll just pause for a minute. Hey, Adrian.
Hello, I'm Adrian, Cam's digital twin. Thanks for joining me. I'm happy to answer your questions or guide you if I'm unsure. Please ask your first question. Are you still there?
Hey, Adrian, tell me about Westbourne Grammar School.
Westbourne Grammar School was founded in 1867 and offers education from early learning to year 12 across 2 campuses, Williamstown Prep to year 4 and Truganina Early Learning to year 12. Our school focuses on contemporary teaching and learning, emphasizing skills, attributes, and dispositions needed for success in the future. We boast a commitment to innovation, technology, and a strong community spirit. Would you like to know anything else?
Wow, so cool. Love seeing that. Thanks for sharing.
No worries. It's great technology, and it literally blows people away. You know, when they think about, has that been pre-recorded? Is it? And I'm like, no, that's actually you know, AI, and they're like, wow. You know, so it's so impressive, and it really has that wow factor when people are interacting with it.
Yeah, very cool. And I was wondering, because you mentioned that part of the focus on AI at Westbourne is helping to kind of reduce the manual or maybe like administrative burden on staff. So I always say like there's a time and a place for AI, especially, I mean, there's obviously naturally so a lot of concern around like, will AI completely eliminate jobs? But in this case, where you have prospective and prospective students or existing students asking questions, did you have any staff members that were kind of allocated to answering questions before? And has this reduced those repetitive questions? I'm sure there are still more complicated questions that require a human touch. Well, what did that look like prior to implementing this?
Yeah, I think, you know, if we go back through the years, we're a large growing school, and one of the things that we're always trying to get better at is that customer service piece. And so I think having interactive avatar technology deployed in different ways definitely improves the customer experience, because they are getting access to questions in real time in their native language. And they're bypassing, I guess, what can typically be frustrations in the enterprise value chain. You know, if you like, that if they're calling a help desk and they're not getting the answer they need, or if they're being put on hold, or if they're getting passed from one person to the next because the people at the other end can't assist with whatever query it is, you know, that leads to that frustration. And so I think this sort of technology improves the customer experience, but it's definitely created some efficiencies for us here, and we're only just getting started. So we've got big plans for this technology over the next 12 to 18 months, and we think it's going to be a game changer in many ways. Now, that's not to take away the human element, which is still absolutely vitally important. And part of my role, I see at the school, is to bring our community along with us to make sure that they're educated about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so I often do weekly video messages, for instance. Most of the time they're actually recorded, and they're me, the real me. But oftentimes we'll deploy a studio avatar or an instant avatar, and talk to our community about, hey, this technology is evolving rapidly. You might be able to notice, if you look really closely, that this is AI generated and it's not actually me, but it looks like me and it sounds like me. But in the coming months, that may be indistinguishable from the real me. So you know, we need to be having these conversations, and we need to be preparing ourselves for that future.
Yeah, so it sounds like how the response has been generally positive from students and staff. What does that look like? Are they seeing the avatars? You mentioned sometimes they don't even realize it's AI generated, but like, what's been some of the feedback that you've received?
It's all been really positive. I think that there is a small percentage of our community that would be a little bit scared, to be fair, because it's so new. And for those that aren't, that don't have themselves in this space on the day to day, it's astonishing. And with that comes, anxiety and fear. And then, the mind goes to the negative ways that this technology could be used. But it's about talking with them. It's about having that conversation. It's about saying, this is what this technology can do now, and it's only going to get better and faster and into the future. And so we need to be understanding it. We need to be talking about it, and bringing people along on that journey. But overall, the feedback has been really positive. We've got a future-focused community that understands where we're heading, understands why we're doing what we're doing, and is fully supportive.
Yeah. I mean, I myself, I think when ChatGPT first came out, I was a little skeptical or prideful. But I think when you see the benefits that it can have, whether it's learning new skills or just thinking through a complicated problem, especially since COVID, like we're living in a maybe more isolated, maybe more online world. I think it's definitely a net positive so far what's been created. And speaking of kind of the forward look, I wanted to ask you specifically about your student AI Academy. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that mission and how those students are engaging with AI and machine learning. Now, is that separate from everything else at Westbourne, or is that integrated?
It's a co-curricular offering. So it was founded in 2022. In direct response to some of our strategic priorities and what was happening in the world around us. But we wanted to create a space for interested students. So it's not a compulsory subject. It's done once a week. It's 2 hours, 2 hours a week, where students from as young as 11 years old all the way through to 18 years old come together. And we have about 65 students involved in the academy at the moment. And they learn about artificial intelligence by actually creating their own simple artificial intelligence applications, because that connects with our educational philosophy of positioning our young people as the creators of tomorrow's technology today. So we've got some expert staff here that facilitate that opportunity for students. And what we find is that the students are not just limiting themselves to that 2-hour window each week. They're actually spending tens of hours each week, really engaged and immersed in this space, creating things that are incredible. And so we have a number of our community involved in AI, holding significant positions in AI research, for instance, here in Australia. And so they come in from time to time as well and work with our young people almost as a coach or a mentor based on whatever project they're working on to help them advance that project, and then see if it has any commercial applicability. And so then taking that and talking with our young people about enterprise and entrepreneurship, and if they can monetize their application, how does that look in practice and what does that mean? Or is it just something that they're doing for the sake of learning, which is intrinsic, rather than doing something to have some extrinsic value. So it's an awesome program. It's, I think, the first of its kind in Australia. We have so many passionate people working on it, and it's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, that's incredible. Congratulations on building that out. And in addition to the technology aspect, it also seems like a really great way to like teach teamwork and how to work with other people on how to build out an idea and put it into action, which is, as we all know, very essential in many aspects of life. So we've talked about the positive. It sounds like it's been relatively smooth sailing and there's just been a lot of general excitement. But what were some of the biggest challenges on the challenging side of things? What were some of those when you first started implementing AI?
Yeah, I think two things, right? It's students using AI tools to create deepfake imagery or video, and doing it in a way to engage in cyberbullying or defamation or those sorts of things. And unfortunately, schools in Australia have had experiences of children doing the wrong thing. Now, thankfully, we had a very minor incident where a student basically used an AI tool to put a face of someone on a body of someone else. And, there was appropriate disciplinary action. Parents were informed, but we also used it as a moment in time to educate and for those people involved to learn about their mistake and why it was not okay. So on the scale of things, it was very minor. So we were very lucky, but we basically jumped on it really quick and used it as an example of what not to do. The other one that I would talk about is when we first started with Hey Gen and the studio and instant avatars. One of the big questions and conversations here at the school was about the authenticity or the human element being lost around potentially myself being misrepresented or acting in a disingenuous way with our community. For instance, if I had an AI generated video created and distributed to our 5,000 parents, and I didn't explicitly state that it was generated by AI, how would that then be perceived? So there was a lot of question around almost like a ethics or a governance piece. But we landed on a really happy place where we basically said we're always going to talk about this from an education perspective, and so we're always going to be quite explicit at the moment. But there will become a time in the future, I think, where we won't need to do that. It'll just be part and parcel of our everyday practice, and it'll be accepted as part of everyday society. Now, people might have different opinions about that. And that's natural because it's a really contentious issue, I think. But it's probably they're the two main challenges, I guess, I'd say we've faced.
And I think from my perspective, I would say that most of our customers using the interactive avatar solution find that the guardrails you can put up in terms of the LLM and what the interactive avatar is trained on are highly effective. You can make sure that you're not being misrepresented and that you're only putting information out there that is explicitly approved by you. Would you agree?
I would agree 100%. And we did some really rigorous testing. I would say probably 10 hours of testing from about 5 different people prior to us first deploying the interactive avatar of myself. And it was put through its paces and it came through with flying colors, like, trying to trick the avatar to say something it shouldn't or trying to elicit personal information. It is just actually not possible with the knowledge base and the guardrails that you put in place. And so I think, for what it's worth, HeyGen has done a great job in creating that mechanism to ensure that the AI avatar says what it should.
That's great to hear. And we're constantly making improvements to that. Even within our static videos, we're creating ways to, add watermarks to all videos created in a HeyGen space to say that they're AI created for those organizations that, for compliance or governance reasons need to show that. So there's going to be way more to come there as the landscape evolves. But I'm glad that it's been working really well for your team so far. We're 39 minutes past the hour. I would love to reserve the last 5 minutes just to field a couple of the questions I have here in the chat. But last question from me to you, Adrian, is do you have any advice that you would give to other educators or institutions considering AI avatars and video technology?
I think the advice that I would have is that if you're not exploring this form of technology now, I think at some point in the future, you will need to. At the moment, some people might see it as a nice to have, but not a must have. But I think at some point in the future, there's going to be this demand, and for me, the demand that can be met is this idea of 24/7 knowledge concierge or customer service, and a really personalized, hyper-personalized experience that is only going to increase in sophistication over the coming months and years. So my advice would be, don't ignore it, start exploring it. And I'd personally be happy to field any questions outside of this webinar from anyone who wanted to further follow up or dig into something in a little bit more depth.
It's a really great offer. Thank you. And then, yeah, so I do just have a couple questions from the audience here today. I think one is particularly relevant as we were just discussing the challenges. This one comes from Jack. From an organization with a frequently evolving knowledge base, are there any challenges for updating the content relevancy?
Yeah, totally. And so the person who works very closely with me in this space is a strategic projects officer. And one of her biggest responsibilities in her portfolio at the moment is looking at the knowledge base, looking at the technology, looking at ways to continue to personalize and utilize the technology in different ways. So yeah, you need to resource it. Mm-hmm. I think, but once you resource it, I think the entry level is still relatively low. So it doesn't take a huge investment. It doesn't take a huge amount of time, but it does require someone to constantly be looking at to make sure that things are relevant, contextual, and appropriate.
An instance where AI has created a job. Happy news. And then, okay, Stanislav from, I believe the answer to this might be yes, but Stanislav asks, are you using it anywhere in the curriculum or in actual real world educational settings, like in the day-to-day?
Yes, but it's still early days. Okay. I think AI will never replace teachers.
Yeah.
So that's my position. Teachers are fantastic in a whole number of reasons, but teachers can use AI, as can students, to augment the teaching and learning approach. And so we're doing that in a number of ways, but more almost in a tutor or a mentor capacity outside of the classroom. So for instance, one of our teachers has created an avatar where basically the entire curriculum has been created as part of the knowledge bank, some guardrails put around it. And so the students can ask the teacher for assistance, perhaps when they're doing their homework at home, and get appropriate responses in a particular fashion. But, inside the classroom, outside of having conversations with students and then using AI in different ways to enhance critical thinking, for instance, it's still early days.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, not just something to be said. I think it's essential to have to kind of grapple with the material and also hear information from multiple sources. They say you have to hear a piece of information 3 times to retain it. I'm not sure how scientifically backed that is, but I think it just goes to your point that I don't think it's ever going to replace the human to human learning experience, but it can certainly enhance it. Great answer. Thank you so much. And then just last one here before we wrap up. Ciro asks, have you actually used the avatar to sell courses within your school, or and if so, was the experience positive? So I know you mentioned it is part of the prospective student process, but do you include pricing information or do you use it to sell specific things?
Well, we definitely use it to talk about pricing and different offerings. We don't actually use it to sell courses, so to speak, but we're utilizing it in a variety of different ways. One of the ways that we're just trialing at the moment, which we're almost ready to roll out, is personalized onboarding for staff recruitment. So automating workflows so that as soon as a new staff member signs their contract, that'll generate a workflow which will ping a personalized message from myself to the new recruit to say, hey, just saw you signed your contract, welcome to the team, which is awesome. I think it just creates that personal touch. But no, the short answer to that question is no, we haven't really used it to sell courses, so to speak, but more to promote and market, which then leads to conversion, if you like, from a business perspective. And in terms, for us, that means new student enrollment.
Absolutely. And, I can think of ways that you could kind of tell an interactive avatar how to respond to certain sales inquiries. If you have maybe like an e-commerce or more of like a sales-based model, just how you could bake resources into it to assist in the sales process. But I think your answer makes total sense. And I'm happy to report that we are exactly at 45 minutes past the hour. I'm very impressed with us for staying exactly to the time box here. So thank you so much, Adrian, for joining us here on this webinar. I think this has been really interesting, and I hope everybody got a lot out of it. This recording will be available, and yeah, just really great story. I can't wait to see the responses to this webinar and what Westbourne is able to do with HeyGen going forward. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day, and speak to you soon. Bye.